on multiple fronts today as we continue to pray for the residents of the Gulf Coast of Florida as they recover from the damage of Hurricane Idalia. We'll bring you the very latest as it develops. Plus, a shocking story out of Ohio surrounding transgender bathroom policies. This story isn't from the Babylon Bee. You might think it is. It's totally real. It's not fake news. Daily Signal reporter Mary Margaret Olahan will be here with all of the details, and I'm telling you, you don't want to miss this. And later, major new poll numbers for Donald Trump. Top pollster extraordinaire superstar John McLaughlin will be here to break it all down. And that's where we lead off tonight, with a major earthquake in the Republican 2024 primary. Because according to an exclusive story in the Daily Mail, Republican strategist and founder of the Run to the Rescue PAC, John Thomas, says he's shutting down the group, citing the DeSantis campaign's massive missteps and chaos, and is 100% endorsing Donald Trump. And that's not all. According to NBC News, the main DeSantis super PAC, Never Back Down, is ending their door-knocking operations in Nevada and Super Tuesday states. It comes as Donald Trump is gaining more and more momentum and inspiring the American people every single day. Joining me now is Republican strategist and founder of Thomas Partners Strategies, John Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good to be with you, Kimberly.
Fantastic. So quite a turn of events, everything going on here. And this has been a big news story across news and media and the internet and whatnot. So lay out for us, what prompted you to do this? What was the evolution of it? And what are you seeing from Donald Trump that's prompted you to do 100%, now endorsement of him?
Back after the midterms, Kimberly, we were promised a red wave and we were given basically a red mist instead. And yet there was this bright spot on election night, which was Governor DeSantis sweeping to a huge election victory. And at that time, it looked like Governor DeSantis might just have the stuff in order to not only win the Republican nomination, but potentially beat Joe Biden. But what we found has been misstep after misstep after misstep. And what we've seen is Governor DeSantis is a great governor of Florida, not a great national campaign. And on the flip side, Kimberly, Donald Trump has shown, in spite of all of the deep state and Joe Biden and his cronies trying to stop him, Donald Trump has ran nearly a flawless effort for the White House again, something that I've never seen. I've been doing this for, almost 20 years, Kimberly. I've never seen Donald Trump run such a smart, strategically wise effort, both from defining DeSantis early, both to messaging points. The level of discipline is something I didn't see out of 2016 when Donald Trump ran, and I supported him back then, or 2020. And so look, what's been proven to me is that Donald Trump not only is going to be the nominee of the Republican Party, as has a unstoppable margin at this point. Right, but he has shown that he has the stuff to beat Joe Biden in the way he's running his campaign, in the way his messaging is showing, in the way his supporters are sticking loyally behind him, but also, Kimberly, on the negative side, which is you look at head-to-head polling right now between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and Donald Trump, by most polls, shows he's up within the margin of error, but he's either tied or up by 1 or 2 points. We didn't see that with Donald Trump and Joe Biden in 2020 or Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in 2016. So for all of those reasons, all of my backers and some deep-pocketed interests, as well as a lot of grassroots people who were open to a DeSantis candidacy, have decided to close up shop and throw in behind not just the eventual nominee, but look, the goal here, Kimberly, it's to beat Joe Biden.
It is. That's what I keep telling people. It's got to be the best person for the job on day one and the best person to be able to beat, Joe Biden. We're going to talk with John McLaughlin later in the program about that exact issue and that exact reasoning, the exact facts and evidence to support it. So let's go ahead and just kind of dissect this. But what were the major missteps? And now that you get some elevation on it and kind of look back and reflect, what do you think some of those major missteps from DeSantis's campaign were? And then I'll ask you the second part.
Sure. So there have been misstep after misstep. I even called it rookie moves in the Daily Mail coming from the DeSantis group. First and foremost was a failure to launch when they chose Twitter. Look, I don't fault DeSantis and his team for not knowing that Twitter would break. Who could have known that? But what I do fault is that launching a presidential campaign, every senior strategist knows that is your one moment nationally to utilize video and optics to captivate a nation.
Why take the chance on something that hasn't been proved or that you don't know and have, you know what I'm saying? It was too much of an experiment.
And Kimberly, you come from the world, this is a video show, you come from the world of cable news. Look, video is everything. And they didn't have any video component to share, to give to the television stations, to give to the influencers on the internet. And that alone was a significant misstep and showed me at that point, they've got a problem. Number two, I haven't seen, and I still have yet to see, Kimberly, what exactly is Ron DeSantis's message? It's what, that he's
never back
Donald
down?
Trump.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not sure that he's Donald Trump, like, light. Well, the problem is, if you like Donald Trump's agenda, if you like his fighting spirit, why would you not go for Donald Trump? Why would you go for like a cheap knockoff when you could have the original thing? I have yet to see that articulate message. And then the last thing, Kimberly.
Well, you don't have Trump policies without Trump. Just that's it.
And that's true. And the last thing is, what we have seen from the Democrats, both at Joe Biden and his administration. We know who they fear the most. It's where they're activating all their attention and they're trying to stop the one guy who can beat him. And what that's done is it's totally backfired in the Republican primary. And it has reminded Republican voters of one of the main reasons they like Donald Trump in the first place. And that's because he has a spine of steel. And that he is the one that will dismantle the deep state, dismantle the bureaucratic state, and can beat Joe Biden. So their antics to stop Trump has only made him stronger. And I think, Kimberly, in a general election, look, we've done focus grouping for other clients and we brought up some of these sham legal issues to them to see how it is. And Kimberly, it's not just that Republican voters know that Donald Trump is being abused, treated unfairly and hypocritically in these cases, but swing voters in some of these key battleground states know that too. And so, look, this issue is going to totally backfire on the Democrats as we go into a general election. So combining all of those things, and the last thing I would say, Kimberly, is one of President Trump's sham trials is scheduled the day before Super Tuesday.
Terrible.
It is horrible. But what's going to happen as we see this Republican primary play out is the day before Super Tuesday, every single Republican voter is not going to be asking themselves of which shade of the undercard Republicans that they're interested in. They're going to be asking themselves, is Donald Trump being treated fairly or unfairly? And is he the fighter we need to go beat Joe Biden? That's the question. And I don't see how any of these other candidates, Governor DeSantis, any of them, can even get into the conversation. So for all of those reasons, and then of course there were unforced errors, super PAC memos that were leaked by accident. These are just like unforced things, and on and on and on. It's bad, Kimberly. But on the flip side, President Trump has run nearly a flawless campaign effort. And I'm actually really pleased to see it. And for all of those reasons, I think Donald Trump, look, it's not going to be an easy general election, but I think Donald Trump is going to have a landslide victory in November.
Well, I'll tell you something. They're helping make that happen with what they're doing here with the lawfare and the two-tier justice system. But many people at home might be asking, someone of yourselves of considerable caliber as GOP consultant, why did you decide to back, Ron DeSantis in the first place? And if it's about Trump and Trump policies, why not choose and be on board with Trump, who you've supported in the past?
Sure. I mean, I supported him. I was a CNN commentator in 2016. I think I was one of the few pro-Trump voices there. I thought he was an incredible president. Really, Kimberly, it was because we came off of multiple losses, midterm losses in 2018. We didn't win the presidential in 2020. And then, of course, we barely got a red mist in 2022. Mm-hmm. And I was singularly thinking, as well as some of my larger donors, look, maybe Trump just can't run the kind of campaign that is necessary to beat the deep state and Joe Biden. Maybe he's not the guy. Maybe it is Ron DeSantis who can put together non-traditional coalitions. Look what he did in Florida. And so that, and honestly, I think Donald Trump got a slow start. He announced unprecedentedly early for this election effort. And I didn't see a lot of campaigning out of him in early days. But look, nothing like competition and the deep state will kick you into high gear, because we've seen Donald Trump, honestly, since the new year, really kick it into high gear and run a flawless effort. And then, Kimberly, Ron DeSantis let us down. I mean, he just hasn't run a good race.
Well, what was your opinion about, the debate? I'm curious.
Well, look, I think Ron DeSantis played it safe. I think he did fine if Donald Trump weren't in the race. Ron DeSantis would have had a good night. But Ron DeSantis didn't need a good night. He needed an exceptional night. And I think he was outshone by Vivek Ramaswamy. I think Nikki Haley got some more points. Donald Trump is up by such a massive margin, both in national and those important state polls, that Donald Trump doesn't need to come down by 5 points, 10 points. He needs to fall by 40 points, Kimberly. That meant that something seismically had to shift in that debate with Ron DeSantis. Yeah. And it didn't. And then juxtapose, Kimberly, are we even remembering that there was a debate? Because the very next day, we saw the mugshot, which again reinforced what every Republican knows, which is Donald Trump is getting railroaded by the Democrats, and we've got to rally behind him because he's the guy to beat Joe Biden.
Interesting you say that, because there are many people who have called for the other individuals that are in this primary race to drop out, unify the party, support Donald Trump, because like you said, this isn't a 5 or 6 point or margin of error difference. This is a pretty gigantic, enormous lead that he has. And if 4 indictments and a mugshot and all the above didn't shut him down or trip him up or cripple him, what else could they have coming forward that is actually going to be a game changer, in terms of the polling and the support and the momentum? I mean, do you believe that the party should now unify behind Donald Trump?
That's a great question, Kimberly. I think that's a fair argument to make, but I also think the Republican Party is the party of competition and ideas and free markets. And so I think just the gravity of the process is going to choke all these others out very, very quickly. They're all running out of money. Their donors are getting fatigued. Their grassroots activists are getting fatigued. So I think they're going to wash out. Look, I think what we've seen is that President Trump really has already switched to general election mode in a stack up against Joe Biden. We're seeing it in his paid media television campaigns. He knows that this primary is effectively over. I mean, Kimberly, the argument that these other candidates stand a shot is so silly because they're making these 2016 comparisons where, Trump was ahead and it was, could have changed. This isn't 2016.
Sure.
Donald Trump was up in the mid-20s, low 30s in 2016. Donald Trump is nearly at 60%.
Yeah.
It's the debates and the other candidates, it feels like they're junior varsity and he and Joe Biden are varsity. That's what this feels like.
I don't know. Joe Biden varsity of what? Varsity team captain of Depends? Right. I don't think so.
Well, he's the incumbent, so I have to give him some.
Yeah, well, that's true. He is currently in the White House.
So
let me ask you something, John. So, and you're one to face things head on, but I'm going to ask the question that people are probably wondering out there, which is, I'm sure you're going to get, be facing criticism because the Trump MAGA base is pretty brutal. They're like, you're either with us or you're not, etc. There might be, and there is criticism against you for this move. What is your message to the America First movement and to Republican, voters out there?
Yeah, I think. My message is I want the Trump agenda. I think Donald Trump was an incredible president, but I think our country is at we always say it's the most important election coming up, but really this is the most important election of our lifetime. I think we are on the precipice of having China, topple us. I think we're on the precipice of jobs never coming back. So we desperately need the Trump agenda more than anything. And so I came at it initially saying we've got to get back to winning. We have not been winning. We assumed that it could have been Ron DeSantis. He showed this promise, this fresh face, an ability to honestly bring together coalitions that the former President Trump hasn't brought to the table yet. And so it was just about Well, college-educated white women in Florida that typically weren't voting for Donald Trump, coalitions of Latinos that weren't with him.
Well, I'm a
in the
Latina
midterms.
and I'm a woman living in Florida and college
Sure.
educated with a Juris Doctorate degree. I vote for Trump. I know.
I mean, I
crazy
know,
here.
I know plenty of them, but I mean, that class typically has been resistant, and I think that's in part because they've listened to the mainstream media's fake messages about the president, even though they say they like his agenda.
Sure.
They didn't always vote for him. So look, I saw it as an opportunity to get back to winning, and it's not that we ever disliked the president. We just thought strategically it made sense. But what we have seen beyond a shadow of a doubt is that Ron DeSantis is not up to the task. It's not just about the primary, Kimberly. He's not up to the task of beating Joe Biden, just pure and simple. He doesn't have what it takes.
Yeah, I'm
at
sure
this
it's a
point in time.
disappointment to see. I mean, we kind of knew that he's doing a good job in Florida, but he sort of jumped
Right.
the shark. And, loyalty and all things considered, this is not a time to have somebody, a rookie in there, trying to figure stuff out on day one. And I'll tell you, I was there very close to the stage during that debate. And when I saw him look around, like just,
Yeah.
not knowing what to do, like not knowing what he should answer. And Vivek Ramaswamy raised his hand, straight up. And then like Ron's looking around and then goes like
Yeah.
this. And then Ramaswamy's going like, you're a wind checker. And wishy-washy. I mean, that is not a good moment. But that also shows the people around DeSantis aren't doing him any favors because he's being over-consulted, over-coached to the point where there isn't any authenticity there of, him being a man, standing on his feet, saying what he thinks and what he believes in versus, a recorded, essentially like rehearsed answer that he thinks is going to do well with the folks out there. I mean, the one thing I'll say is, Donald Trump, he just like, boom, calls balls and strikes. He's not afraid to say exactly what he thinks and what he feels. He's not afraid to change his mind or to listen to all sides. But people love that authenticity about Trump, and they find that he's relatable, that it relates with the average hardworking man or woman, whatever socioeconomic class, that he cares about the people, that he doesn't need the job, that he's loyal and that he'll fight for you, even when everybody's against you. You can't coach that. You can't buy it. You can't super PAC fund it. It's just one of those naturals, he's a natural.
You hit that on the head. I mean, in my profession, what we call it is like a stickiness of message. It's an authenticity. Right. We can have a candidate read any talking point or focus group tested message that we know works, but the believability and the credibility is only something that the candidate can bring,
and that's priceless.
Know. It really is, and we're seeing it. Look, we've seen Governor DeSantis do it on Ukraine. He took what was many in the America First movement thought was the right position on Ukraine, and then all of a sudden his donors said, whoa, 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 we don't want you to take that position, and he modified it. That's not what Americans want, and that's not what the Republican electorate wants. I think that's been part of the governor's challenges here. Look, sometimes you can be an exceptional fit for one office, but not the next. And I think that's what we're seeing out of Governor DeSantis.
Okay, and anybody you think that you said Vivek, did well, etc. Anyone you like there, you think for VP, or what do you see? What trend do you see coming forward?
It's a great question. Look, I think. I thought Tim Scott, although he didn't have a remarkable performance, I thought
he didn't
get
a lot of time either. You know what I mean?
Right, but he's good. I love his happy warrior message. I love the message that he's saying, don't accept this idea. Yeah, that Democrats say that everyone's a racist and the system's worked against you and you can't succeed if you work. I think that's the message we need. And look, he would be Senator Scott, maybe a great VP, maybe a great member of President Trump's cabinet. I think Vivek showed an ability to deliver the Trump agenda and the message, which was great. We need those messengers out there. And look, Governor DeSantis did fine, but that's not going to be enough to get him through this primary.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's why I think the rest of them just like call it a day. I don't see anybody getting catch up. All the stuff they tried to throw at Trump, it didn't work already. So what are you waiting for? A lot of people got in this race because they thought Trump's going to get defeated or taken down or have to drop out. He's not dropping out. And now I see him making inroads across all different lines, from disaffected Democrats, independents, libertarians, more support in African American and Latino communities. You see it playing out across social media, but it's definitely one to watch. And I appreciate you coming on the program because this was a big breaking news story. John Thomas, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Kimberly.
All right. And joining me now for more reaction, MAGA Inc. spokeswoman, Caroline Leavitt. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you, Kimberly, for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, my pleasure indeed. So you heard all of that, and I just want to get your reaction to John Thomas and the development suggesting, kind of in many ways, as we believe, this primary is over and it's time to shift to the general election. But what do you think about this whole, super PAC standing down and what we're seeing?
Well, it's certainly not surprising after having watched Ron DeSantis' campaign really implode over the past several months. It began on day one with his failure to launch on Twitter Spaces, which of course was wrought with technical difficulties, but also was completely ineffective in reaching any real voters out there in the heartland of America who aren't paying attention to what's going on Twitter. And then throughout the campaign, DeSantis has continuously flip-flopped, namely on his position on Ukraine, which is a massive issue to the American public heading into this next election. He called it a territorial dispute. He walked that back after reporting revealed his donors didn't like that position very much. So I think the public has realized that this is a man who unfortunately is controlled by his consultants and controlled by very wealthy donors who want to buy our elections when it's we the people who want to decide our elections. And so also what I'd like to point out is, the public has realized that Ron DeSantis is very, very unlikable and unrelatable. In my home state of New Hampshire, you got to do the work on the ground. You have to shake hands and kiss babies, as we say. And the more Ron DeSantis has done that, the farther and farther down he's gone in the polls. So he should drop out of this race if he wants to save any face and integrity, rally around Donald Trump so we can take these resources to Joe Biden.
Yeah, I couldn't even agree more with you because it's all about the general election now. Let's quit playing games. This is not in any shape, way or form, something that is statistically close, not by a long shot. He has a massive lead. And like I said, all the indictments have already come down, the mugshot, all of the above. It's actually just served to propel him, forward with his momentum and broaden the tent. Talk a little bit about that, by the way, how these sham indictments, they appear to be backfiring, right? I mean, that's what's happening. The polling suggests it. Are the American people seeing right through this nonsense?
Oh, they absolutely are. Every single poll indicates that. And anecdotally, when you go out into the heartland in New Hampshire, in Iowa, and you speak to voters one-on-one, they're really fed up with seeing Donald Trump being relentlessly and continuously attacked for the past 8 years, right? Since he came down that golden escalator at Trump Tower, they've thrown everything at him. And so the American public are waking up and realizing, why are they doing this to this guy? And it's because he serves as a unique threat to the Washington, D.C. establishment on both sides of the aisle that wants to control politicians, right? Republicans and Democrats. Donald Trump shocked all of them when he won the White House. And I think people have a lot of respect for a man who knows that everything in this country, every institution, including the Department of Justice now, is being used to destroy him, his business, and his family, as you know well, Kimberly. But he's stepping into the arena again to fight for us. So the sham indictments are one thing, but then also, of course, the abysmal policies of the Biden regime that are really hurting Americans, hurting their paychecks, hurting their communities. We have a wide open border, unleashing 100,000 illegal aliens into American communities every single month. We're seeing just last week in Ohio, an 11-year-old American boy was killed on his school bus by an illegal immigrant. Just tragic stories
so sad.
Of the Biden administration's policies. And so that's why people are rallying around Donald Trump. He's not just dominating the primary, but he's also the only Republican to be beating Joe Biden in the general election too.
That's absolutely right. So what is the message now, going forward 2024 to voters who see themselves, okay, because these are the people you got to bring in that see themselves as more moderate or maybe don't even follow the day-to-day, chaos that's going on, with the news. How do we get them to turn out? How do we get that additional 15 million, voters to turn up, on election day and vote for Donald Trump?
Well, looking at the past few elections, when Donald Trump's name is on a ballot, more voters turn out, right? He turns out the Republican base, of course, but also
he turns out the other side too.
Well,
there he is again.
Blue collar, hardworking, old school Democrats who believed in the party of JFK, not this far left radical party that has incited chaos, that supports open border policies, that supports men becoming women and women becoming man. And so I think the average good-hearted American who wants to restore common sense to this country is going to vote for the guy who made their paychecks go farther, who backed the law enforcement in their communities, and who also wants to put parents in the driver's seats of their children's education. That's a winning issue for Republicans. Donald Trump is leading the charge on it. And again, I think there's no greater contrast between thinking about what our lives look like and feel like in Joe Biden's America and then in Donald Trump's America. And that's why Donald Trump is the Republican best suited to beat Joe Biden at the end of the day, because we remember the tangible impact that his policies had on our families, our pocketbooks, and our businesses.
Absolutely. And Donald Trump is also laying out a very robust policy agenda. What are the top issues as you see it that voters are most concerned about in this election cycle? And at the core, don't they want their day-to-day lives, quite frankly, to get better than they've been over the past 2 years?
Amen. I hate when I hear the media say that Donald Trump isn't looking towards the future. He's the only candidate in this race, Joe Biden included, that has put forth comprehensive policy proposals for the future. If you go on donaldjtrump.com, click on Agenda 47, you can read hundreds of policy proposals to curb the homelessness crisis that is plaguing American cities, to bring down our energy costs. He did it before. We were a net exporter of energy under his leadership. And he has, tangible plans to unleash the might of our
All right, look, she's back.
And then also too securing our border and launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history.
It's true.
Nobody's talking about the border as strongly as President Trump, and he will get it done again.
I think he absolutely will, and I cannot stress, as a former prosecutor and officer of the court, the importance of strengthening and securing our border. Well, what a pleasure, Caroline, to have you on the program. Superstar from MAGA Inc. and the spokesperson. Thank you, and we'll be having you on the program again.
Thanks, Kimberly. Anytime.
Okay, and much, much more to follow up on all of that with iconic pollster John McLaughlin. I mean, this guy knows more about politics than anybody has, just boom, and everything, okay? Plus, a shocking legal story surrounding trans bathroom policies. You're not even going to believe it. And I'm also keeping an eye on the live chat and will respond to your questions and comments. Hit that like button if you can, right down there. It's right down below. And it's all of you who make this show possible, along with our brave sponsor. So be sure to go check out the great folks over at Goldco. Gold and silver can protect your retirement savings from inflation and dollar devaluation. Look, we all see the economic warning signs. We see banks collapsing. We see reckless spending. And I want you to be ready, because I'm ready. With Goldco, you can take action to secure and stabilize your portfolio. Roll over your 401k or your IRA into precious metals and safeguard your savings. You can do it, tax and penalty free. So from precious metals, IRAs, to direct purchase of gold and silver, Goldco has helped thousands of Americans place over $2 billion in gold and silver. And good news, when you open a qualifying gold IRA today, get up to $10,000 in free silver. So go to kimsmetals.com to learn more. That's kimsmetals.com. All right, and we're going to go ahead and take a question or two, because we're keeping an eye on the live chat, and we've had some great guests on there with John Thomas and Carolyn Levitt from MAGA Inc. going over all of this big breaking news. What do we got, Drew?
One consistent, a QB1, but this has been a question literally a dozen times, is Ron might be a good governor, but that's about it.
Okay, so yeah, this is addressing the issue where people are saying, fair enough, Ron DeSantis has done well in a very red state in Florida, and under the leadership and guise of, President Trump is losing this race for governor till President Trump and all of us, quite frankly, stepped in as surrogates and to help him and bring him across the finish line. But I live in Florida. He's my governor. I think he's done a good job. But the point people are making, and the distinction, is that he's done a good job serving as a governor, but that he's not ready to be president of the United States. And if the people thought that he was, you'd be seeing him much higher in the primary, not getting overtaken by Vivek and others that outshone him in that primary debate. That's why so many people are saying, with Donald Trump up 40 points plus in so many of these polls across the board, not an outlier, but across the board, that it's time to say, sayonara, let's like wrap it up with this primary. Let's all get behind President Trump for this general election and move forward. Quite frankly, I don't think the Democrats would be doing this. I really don't. If they had somebody who was a superstar as president and, for whatever reason didn't end up back in the White House, they would say, okay, let's back this guy. This is the one. This is the horse that can finish and get across, the finish line. This is the Triple Crown guy. And instead now you see people still scrambling and groveling, and they've got like 1%. It's just not happening. And it's just a waste of time and resources. And only the consultants are really the ones making the money and getting any benefit out of all of it. Certainly not helping conservative America First, men and women and voters across the country that really want to move on with saving this country and restoring the safety and security of the country, and strong borders and manufacturing and infrastructure, a strong economy, respect overseas, very strong national security and foreign policy. I mean, I could go on and on. Stopping the scourge of gangs and fentanyl and drugs pouring across our borders, respect for law enforcement, respect for the military and our veterans, making our military well on the way with President Trump strong and robust again, and operating from a position of strength in all different geopolitical areas and arenas. But that's not what we see right now. That's why Americans are frustrated, and that's why we're seeing these problems, whether it's in gas prices, food prices, production costs, like all of the above. So, that's what we got to talk about. And what helps make decisions for the American people to understand what's going on and whether or not it's time to move on? The polling. Talking to the good folks out there to decide exactly what is going on, what are the most important issues to the American people, and which candidate is resonating with the voters that is looking likely to be the runaway for the primary. So we're going to continue our coverage of the 2024 presidential race, where Donald Trump, like we said, is seeing more and more momentum in the fundraising, in the enthusiasm, and it's reflected in the polling. Because even after the Georgia indictments and a mugshot, a new poll from top, and I mean top pollster, John McLaughlin, has Donald Trump beating Joe Biden in an electoral college landslide. Look at the headline right there. And nationally, Trump is up 5 points over Biden. Donald Trump is polling even better, pay attention to this, than in 2016 or 2020. And is, of course, crushing opponents, as you've seen, as you've heard, with people jumping the ships in the Republican primary. Here, with more, top pollster, the great and iconic John McLaughlin. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let me
Pressure's
tell
on
you,
now.
absolutely. So let me tell you something. You see this guy on the screen? This is who President Trump listens to, okay? I've been in the room with him how many times? And he's like, give me John McLaughlin. Like, he's on a plane or he's here. We got to get him. We get John on. He wants to talk to him. And he pays attention. So I think it's a great compliment. It shows you how smart the president is because he listens to you. So, the viewers were super excited. Got a lot of comments for you being on today. I pay attention to what you say. You're my number one go-to. Lay out this major new poll and what you're seeing play out and where you see this whole trajectory, this path going forward for 2024.
Well, President Trump, thankfully, when he makes his pollster look good because he just wills the numbers. He basically
he manifests.
He's got this gut, and he listens to the American people, and he reflects where they are. And what's amazing about this, unfortunately, the end of last year, I was saying you got to focus on beating Biden, and that's what the Republicans want, and he has been. And I said, unfortunately for you, the only crime you've committed is you're ahead of Joe Biden in the polls. Mm-hmm. Because when he left office, I met with him in February 21 with a couple other advisors, and I said the sad part about what's going on right now is Biden's going to fail. Mm-hmm. And for those of us who are older and remember what happened in 76 when Reagan didn't win the nomination, and Ford got it, Ford lost to Carter, but a lot of people said, after Carter failed in 4 years, they had buyer's remorse, and Reagan won in a landslide. And it didn't take Joe Biden 4 years to fail. I mean, he failed. He's failing right now. He's probably the most corrupt president in the history of the United States, and he's becoming exposed. And um, ever since he surrendered Afghanistan, President Trump's been leading Joe Biden in the polls, in our national polls, and it's on our website, McLaughlinOnline.com. So we got this poll Wednesday, uh, right before the Republican debate,
Wow.
and Donald Trump was leading Joe Biden once again, 47 to 43. In a national sample of likely Republican primary voters, Trump was leading the field with 51%. Ramaswamy was second at 13. DeSantis 9. Uh, Everybody else low single digits. And you had Trump one-on-one against DeSantis among these likely Republican primary voters. He was leading 72 to 28. And what's important about the numbers is the change in the numbers, because in January, Trump was leading the field of a dozen possible opponents, where he was at 42%, DeSantis at 31, everybody else single digits. Now he's up at 51, and DeSantis has collapsed from 31 to
Yeah.
9%. And one-on-one, Trump was leading DeSantis 52 to 40, and now it's 72 to 28. There's no undecideds. There's no place for DeSantis to go to get votes to beat Trump. They're talking about making other candidates drop out. It won't matter. The votes are going to go to Trump. And then the national numbers against Joe Biden, what we saw, like in 2016 and 2020, we were never heading the national popular vote.
Right.
It was always about an electoral victory in the 17 battleground states. And we won in 2016, where by 78,000 votes, we carried Pennsylvania 44,000, Michigan 10,000, Wisconsin 22,000, and it was the same thing in 2020. Never had in the national popular vote, but we were running close in states like Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, where we by their counts we barely lost. But now the world has changed, and you now have a Trump voter in 24 that voted for Biden in 2020 and regrets it. And so you've got voters who voted for Biden and now voting for Trump because they care about the economy. 67% of all voters in this poll said the country's on the wrong track. They said the economy's getting worse, not better, 64 to 32. 85% have been negatively impacted by inflation. You've got 45% saying that it's to the point where they can't make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
These are Americans. And they know when Trump was president, inflation was low, gas was much lower, food prices were lower, their wages went farther, the dollar went farther, and America was strong. We weren't surrendering countries. We weren't, Joe Biden can't stop Putin. He's so corrupt. He can't stop the war in Ukraine, but he wants us to pay for this. Putin would have never done this if Trump was president.
Never.
Never.
And Afghanistan, there would have been any withdrawal like that was just horrifically executed. And I can't even use the word executed because it was so abysmal the way they handled the whole thing.
Yeah, but you're right. It wasn't a withdrawal. It was a surrender. The day it happened, one of my former friends and a current friend and a former client, Stephen Harper, called. He'd been the Prime Minister of Canada. Canada, as a NATO ally, had troops in Afghanistan. They lost, soldiers there, and he said to me, "This is not a withdrawal. This is a surrender."
It's true. Great way to put it.
And President Trump has been saying that ever since. That basically you've had 2 years since Biden surrendered Afghanistan, and he gave all the weapons, cost people their lives, gave it to the Taliban, gave it to the terrorists, and the world is not afraid. Yeah, not afraid of Joe Biden, but it's sad. So President Trump is really a commander in chief, and that's what the country wants again.
No,
So
you're
the
absolutely right.
polls reflect that, and I'll tell you the stunning numbers in the poll. 74% of all voters in this last poll see politics playing a role in the indictments. That President Trump has been indicted.
It's a big
4
deal.
times. And 60% say Joe Biden has played a role. So these voters are not being fooled. And when we ask them is this a diversion away from, the Biden cocaine in the White House and the Hunter Biden scandals and the bribery scandals? They said it's a diversion 55-34 among all voters. Primary voters, 83-10, it's a diversion. Is there a double standard of justice where they prosecute President Trump, but they cut a sweetheart plea deal with Hunter Biden? They said it's a double standard, 59-29, 88-14 among the primary voters.
They're being honest. Yeah.
And I tell you what, the voters want to vote. This is even higher than the vote total we got, where we asked them, would you rather let the voters decide at
Yeah.
the ballot versus Biden with the indictments and the courts? And 56-34, they said let the voters decide at the ballot, and Republicans agree with that 85-10.
It's pretty
No one
impressive.
is being fooled by Joe Biden, by this
Sure.
corruption. And you know, I have clients in Eastern Europe, and they say to me, this is what the communists did. You know, this is why they fought for
Literally,
democracy.
exact playbook.
And they're shocked by what's going on in the United States, because they want inflation to go down. They want the war to end in Ukraine. They want, you know, a strong America. They want Donald Trump back as president. Some of them are afraid to say it because Joe Biden might hurt them as president, and they know
It's
how
true.
corrupt he is.
They're worried
They
about
know
the
how-
retribution.
Yep.
So,
So
yeah.
the American people see through this, and the polls. President Trump keeps leading, and the polls are following him. So this is he's doing a phenomenal job showing what Joe Biden is doing wrong, what he can do better, and basically letting voters know that there's hope, that, you know, we're going to win this election. He'll win the nomination, and he'll go on to win the election and beat Joe Biden. That's what the voters want.
You know, and as for the primary, how you see it now, and you've heard people come on like Joe Thomas and whatnot, people jumping ships on, you know, DeSantis super PACs, etc., disbanding, money not coming in, that, you know, debate did not help. I mean, really anybody. I mean, Vivek came out looking like kind of, you know, charming and good. But is this over? Is it time for everybody to jump behind President Trump, given his, you know, really impressive and massive lead in the polling that's been very consistent? Like I said earlier, it's not like one outlier. I mean, and the validity on your, you know, polling and, you know, the methodology that you, you know, employ is always spot on. You know, I hate wasting time. I hate like putting all these resources where just consultants are making money instead of us, you know, kind of rallying together to make sure that we have the resources and the momentum for the general election.
Well, I think you're exactly right. It's time that the Republicans do come together, but it's more of it's more really of an existential threat to the all and to democracy. Right now, you have a corrupt president who is trying to deny his leading opponent his right to free speech, his civil rights, undermine his campaign by using the DOJ and the FBI and local DAs against his opponent. So instead of the Republican National Committee and Fox News, instead of embarrassing Trump to try to go to a debate with these other candidates, the night before he's going to get a mugshot and a fingerprint or whatever arrested in Fulton County by a Soros DA. The night before they're doing that, they're trying to get him to go to this debate. Well, they should have gone to Atlanta with him and stood behind him in Fulton County, just like civil rights leaders.
Solidarity, yeah.
Right. They should, instead of saying, "Oh, pardon him, he's done nothing wrong," the Republican National Committee should be sending lawyers, should be sending people with him.
Don't get me started. Yeah.
If those other candidates had any decent poll numbers, they'd get indicted too. I mean,
yeah, no kidding. He wouldn't be indicted whatsoever, except for the fact that he chose to seek re-election in 2024. So that's why they're coming after him, or he wouldn't have any of these. But he has a long memory for this stuff, and I think it's important to. And there should be accountability in the party. And where's the RNC with any of this? Begrudgingly saying they'll help with some legal bills or something? I mean, give me a break. And then we're just supposed to just blow smoke up these people's butt that have like 1% in the poll. You know, that dog don't hunt. That's it. It's not working. It's not happening. Who do you like, and have you done any polling on this consistently about VP, et cetera?
I've not. You know, the person you'll have to poll at the right time will be President Trump. But that's
true.
But
I know who's not going to be it, and it's quite a few people. But there's like one or two that are still surviving.
but you know, I mean, the interesting play right now is Kamala Harris, in our poll, she's a 37 favorable, 54 unfavorable. And she gets beat by Donald Trump 50-40. She gets beat by 10 points. She's not going anywhere because she looks at Joe Biden and says, I might be president. But the Democrats,
Don't
Biden's
want
gonna,
her.
no, they don't want her. But you know what? We've got a much bigger bench. There's much more opportunities. You've got people like, Carrie Lake. You've got people like Linda McMahon. You got Kristi Noem. You have lots of people. Linda McMahon would be really good, by the way.
I love when you just said that. I went.
Exactly.
Trump loves her, and she's smart as hell. She was amazing. Everything she did with business, she's really great. I worked with her in the Super PAC, and yeah, she's phenomenal. What she's doing with AFPI, that's a good one.
We've got lots of people to pick from, but at the right time, first thing first, we got to win in Iowa in January. We got to win in New Hampshire in January. Then we got to win in Nevada, South Carolina, and the Super Tuesday states, seal the nomination, and then we'll see, with what's going on with the Democrats, and President Trump will pick the right vice president that'll help him win. So
I agree.
right now, it would be an honor to be running with him again, but this is a very, very important election. We have to win. We must win, because, if they get away with this against Donald Trump, most voters in America, we've seen in our polls, they believe that Joe Biden and the Democrats, if they get away with this, they can do it to anyone.
You're absolutely right. The thing I worry about, John, is, Biden, they're going to drag him by his friggin' slip-on shoes across the finish line. They don't want Kamala. And then I think it's going to be a thank you, sir, for your service, et cetera, et cetera. We need to move in a different direction for the party and slip someone in at the last minute. Maybe Gavin Newsom, this even scares me more, but Michelle Obama, who would be tough to beat. That's what I worry about, that they're going to bait and switch at the end.
President Trump will beat any of those opponents because the issues will be with us. The country will still be on the wrong track. The economy won't be going well. There'll still be inflation. America will still be weak in the world. The only way you fix it is you elect Donald Trump and you vote for the Republicans. And what's amazing is there's enough Biden 20 voters that regret their vote, that want to vote for Donald Trump now, that we're ahead in the polls. And it's not just my polls. It's on the average of all those polls. And then the other part is, in our poll, Trump leads in the battleground states 49-41. That would be a landslide electorally right now. So,
oh my God, that's a big deal.
Yes. So
say that again to the people at home, John, because this is, to me, is one of the most significant data points that I've seen come forward.
Right. Within the poll, of the 17 states that are the battleground states, Trump beats Biden 49-41. So that means we'd win Pennsylvania, win Georgia, win Arizona. And the key thing is states like Georgia. I had a client, the late speaker, Ralston in Georgia. He asked me to poll for him in 21 when they were changing the election law in 22. And he changed the election law, and we got rid of the drop boxes, those unsecured drop boxes that Zuckerberg paid for. They have them secured now in government buildings. And all of a sudden, out of the 5 million votes that were cast in 2020, where 1.3 million came in the mail or Dropbox, and they didn't keep count of which ones were which. In the last election, because that election law change, you had to have voter ID. Whether it was absentee or whether it was in person, you had to show voter ID. And there was only 247,000 mail-in ballots in last November's 2022 election in Georgia. So with voter ID, statewide, the Republicans won every race except the Senate race, which was close. But the governor and all those people won. This means in states like that, where we protect voter ID, the poll will be proven right. We'll win. We'll win in those states. We'll win these battleground states. It won't be close. It'll be decisive. So we've got work to do. Once we seal the nomination, we got to make sure as many of these states as possible have voter ID.
So important for this voter, integrity. Yeah, well, I hope so. This is the best news I've heard in a long, long time. So, yes, very good. John, what a pleasure. We look forward to having you back on this program. We got a lot of viewers, and people are super excited to have you on. You just get it right, So I just say, all right, go get me John McLaughlin. He'll tell us what's happening.
Well, if they're listening to you, they'll get it right. We got to keep getting the facts out.
All right. Fantastic. All right. Well, keep up that good polling, okay? And from your mouth to God's ears and your polling fingers, you got it. You got your finger on the pulse of the American people and the America First movement.
Well, President Trump's leading. I just follow him.
That's what we all do here. Yeah.
Making my job easy.
He's our wartime conciliator, our braveheart of the MAGA movement. But thank you again, and all the best to you and your team and your family.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Kim.
Pleasure was mine. And much more just ahead, including a shocking legal case surrounding trans bathrooms. Don't freak out, but definitely want to listen to this. Plus, the latest attacks on pro-life Americans. So hit that like button, please, right down there below, and stay in the live chat. It's jumping up. People are saying, time to knuckle up. Let's go. So, and a lot of American flags, little Trump things. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I love looking at this chat. All right. Then don't forget, please, about our amazing sponsors as well. For example, be sure and check out Patriot Mobile, because with Patriot Mobile, you put America first with every call, all while getting the same nationwide coverage as major carriers. Patriot Mobile provides you dependable wireless service at an affordable price, putting your dollars into action and supporting freedom-loving values. They donate a portion of every dollar to support groups that fight for the First Amendment, the right to bear arms, the sanctity of life, and protecting our brave police and first responders. Patriot Mobile, mobilizing freedom and supporting you. So for free activation, please go to the patriotmobile.com/KG. So patriotmobile.com/KG. And now turning to a disturbing story out of the state of Ohio, where women are speaking out after, I'm sorry to say, but an obese man who allegedly identifies as a woman was actually naked in the women's locker room. But according to this judge, okay, his stomach fat, I'm not making this up, supposedly concealed his genitalia, so it couldn't be considered indecent exposure. Translation: he was so fat it covered his junk. What do you want me to tell you? What kind of world are we living in? But now the women are breaking their silence and speaking out and saying exactly what happened. So Mary Margaret Olahan is joining us, and she is here with the exclusive report. So congratulations on that, from the Daily Signal. She's a phenomenal reporter. This story made me so mad, and I was so happy you were able to come on the program. I would freak out if I went in one of these bathrooms and there's this guy who pretends to identify as a woman or whatever, who's obviously probably laughing at everyone, running around, you know, with stomach fat hanging over, which is nothing wrong with stomach fat, but it is when you're using it as an excuse to get into the women's bathroom. And, you know, I don't even know. Just welcome to the show. Congrats again on the story. Please explain, because it seems like the world has gone mad. What is going on at the YMCA, okay? And what is wrong with this judge who is saying that this person is like too indecent to, or too obese to commit an indecent exposure?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. First of all, it's great to be here. You're right. This story is wild on so many different levels. These women who told me their stories, I couldn't believe it. One after another, they're telling me. The first woman said she was in the shower, trying to shower after her swim. She gets out of the shower and looks around, and there's a man's bathing suit. The man had been wearing a woman's bathing suit. He had left it on the bench in the locker room. So she's thinking, oh my gosh, there's the bathing suit. Where's the man? And lo and behold, there he is, naked right there. Another woman told me she was in there with her 2 daughters. No. Each of them were in their own showers. Oh. She came out of the shower and sees the naked man and yells to her daughters, don't come out. She's scared because her young daughters are about to be
traumatized.
Her, you know, in their towels in front of this man who is naked. It's hard to actually fathom these stories until you listen to these women who have actually lived it out. We talk about this all the time, you know, like men shouldn't be in women's spaces, men shouldn't be in women's locker rooms. And then you hear about the women that were in those spaces with a naked man, and it's very disturbing and sad for them.
No, it's very upsetting. And imagine like a child, you know, and a young woman and young girls like being traumatized, you know, seeing that. But here's my live chat is saying, oh my God, was Chris Christie in the restroom? I didn't make it up. I cannot confirm nor deny. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't understand how like they are the bad people here, like, and the guy is like the victim, and how a judge can say, I guess he's basing it on like a specific intent thing to say he didn't intend, the crime can't be committed because he's too fat to be able to commit it. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's like someone going in to rob a bank, but they're not good at it, so they don't get any money or they get caught, and then you say, well, no, they suck as a bank robber, so therefore they couldn't commit this crime. It's BS.
It's beyond comprehension. And in this specific case, too, this man was telling the YMCAs that he identified as a woman. He was saying, he told someone else that he was interested in men, not in women.
See,
well, I
phony,
also
big
spoke,
liar.
well, yeah, I apparently, because I spoke to this woman who told me that he kind of played on her sympathies and told her he was really struggling with all this anti-trans hate. So she went out one-on-one with him to get coffee to try and comfort him. Well, while they were out there getting coffee, she says that he assaulted her by touching her inappropriately. And she couldn't believe that he would do such a thing. And she tried to kind of move past it because she wasn't sure how she felt. Well, she said, again, he touched her inappropriately.
Well, she should file did she file a police report?
She did.
Because that's
She
battery
did.
and assault, and the guy can then have a record so people know exactly who the hell he is, and he can be stopped from going into another bathroom and conning some other sweetheart from Starbucks to try to like have sympathy for him.
Right. Well, she did get a restraining order against him that ultimately
Good
was
for her.
let go. She doesn't have it anymore. And the latest update in this case, which I'm sure, Kimberly, you will think is even crazier, this girl is telling me that she is still an employee of the YMCA, but he keeps coming to work while she's there, even though he assaulted her. And even though she told the YMCA that it makes her really uncomfortable, they're still letting him come into the YMCA, not doing anything about it.
Yeah, because they don't want to
they
get sued.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're endangering everybody else coming in there. Like, where's their responsibility and obligation actually to be ethical and moral and provide a safe environment for other people going in? This is what disgusts me. And these are people making a joke of the system and saying, oh, you know, I'm trans, I'm upset, blah, 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 and I'm having a hard time. But yet they want to go in there and be a big molester and a big pervert and go in the women's restroom and try to look at young girls and women and then pretend to cry about it and then try to assault and molest them. Like, what the hell?
It's so bad, and it's gotten to the point where, you know, we even did a report last week on the situation in prisons around the country. They're allowing biological men in women's prisons. That just is a whole other level of a betrayal of trust. You know, these incarcerated women are being housed with men who identify as women. But in some cases, these are men that have been convicted of sex offenses against women. So that's just, you know, it's very obvious what the problem is with that there. But in the cases of these locker room situations, I've asked, many other reporters have asked as well. We go to the leadership of the YMCA or that particular institution and we say, so what are you doing to make sure that these women are comfortable in their spaces? You know, we're not saying anything aggressive. We're just very purely saying, how are you making sure these women feel safe? And they don't have anything to say. They'll give you these very like carefully constructed statements about discrimination and how they make sure that everyone feels welcome. Well, all the women I spoke with do not feel welcome. They feel very uncomfortable and unsafe, and a lot of them canceled their memberships.
Good, because it isn't safe. God forbid something happens to one of them or their children, you know, and maybe the YMCA will like wake up at other businesses. When you start to lose customers and paying customers, there has to be an economic impact to effectuate, you know, social, you know, political outcomes. It's very frustrating to me, but you also actually have another very important story. I want to get the latest on this. You've been covering pro-life demonstrations, and these demonstrators were recently, I guess, found guilty of obstructing access to an abortion clinic in DC. Is there more to the story? Last year, we saw women's pregnancy centers vandalized, but were there prosecutions for that? Where does this all play out?
This is one of my favorite stories to cover because it is so blatantly, it is such a blatant, clear example of how the DOJ is targeting pro-lifers and not targeting pro-abortion activists.
Oh yeah, they're targeting Catholics too.
Exactly, and just to make everything clear, Since the overturn of Roe v. Wade and since the leak of the draft opinion showing that Roe v. Wade would be overturned, there's been over 100 attacks on Catholic churches around the country. There's been almost over 100 attacks on pro-life pregnancy centers around the country. The DOJ has only filed FACE Act charges against 4 pro-abortion activists related to the destruction or vandalism of a Florida pregnancy center. That's the only ones that we've heard about. And then meanwhile, the DOJ has charged more than 26 pro-life activists since the beginning of 2022. And they've charged those activists with FACE Act charges. The FACE Act is complicated and kind of confusing, but basically it's about abortion. It protects pro-life activists. It also protects pro-abortion activists. And the point of it is that you can't block people from going into an abortion clinic, and you can't block or vandalize an abortion clinic or a pregnancy center. Unfortunately, the DOJ only cares about the pro-abortion activists. And so we saw this week a DC jury convicted 5 pro-life activists of blocking the entrance to an abortion clinic. And I was speaking with Ted Cruz earlier this week. We wrote a story based around his statement on this. Ted Cruz pointed out that one of these activists was involved in finding the bodies of these babies from a DC abortion clinic that looked like they were really brutally and horribly aborted against the law in the United States. Even though we have such lenient abortion laws, there are laws that say you can't dismember babies a certain way, and it looks like this law was violated. But DC doesn't care. DC has no abortion laws whatsoever. And so Ted Cruz was saying it looks like these pro-life activists were partially targeted because of their attempt
whistleblowing, essentially. Yeah, like whistleblowing on this. It's unbelievable. Well, I have to tell you, you do great reporting, super smart and talented, and yeah, you got a home here and a place here to share your stories, to get these important issues out there. I really commend you on the work that you're doing, getting the facts. It's like that's what reporting is supposed to be about. You know, chasing these stories down, getting the people to sit down and talk to you. And it's not easy, folks, out there. But she managed to convince people to sit down, talk with her, a woman who had been assaulted at the YMCA, and following up on the story. What's the aftermath? Not just the one incident, but are there others? And finding those people. And it takes a lot of work and time to be a really strong and good journalist. And that's what you're doing, Mary Margaret. So I really appreciate you and your integrity and your hard work. And I really look forward to having you back on the program again. Please let my producer know, Drew, whenever you have a story that you can bring to the good folks, because they care. The whole live chat is going crazy, Drew, right? So they really care about these stories. They're really important. And unfortunately, the mainstream media does not bring these stories to light for all the reasons that you've suggested, in your reporting, which is why places of business and whatnot are afraid to take a stand against it, because they're worried about lawsuits, this, that, or somebody's worried about being canceled. No one cares about protecting the safety of women and children, or the sanctity of life, or protecting babies. I mean, what is wrong with this world? That's why hopefully we change it up in 2024. But Mary Margaret, thank you so much again for being on the program. And people can check out all your stuff on Daily Signal. And where else can people follow you and get some news?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Mary Marg Olahan, and you can find our reporting at dailysignal.com. And thank you so much, Kimberly. This was great.
Fantastic. All right, we'll see you again soon, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right, we'll continue following these important stories. You can count on that, okay? And I just also want to improve your life. So in closing tonight, don't ever forget what's at stake in 2024. Peace, prosperity, and an America First future. You have the power to change the world for the better and to stand up for what's right. And always remember that you have a home right here on this show on Rumble, where we reject the false narrative and always seek the truth. So be sure to like and subscribe to my channel at Kimberly Guilfoyle, turn on notifications, download the Rumble app, and tell all your friends and family so they know exactly where to find us. And also be sure to follow me, please, across all platforms, X, formerly known as Twitter, Truth Social, Facebook, and Instagram. And give Don Jr. a follow as well. And do not miss Don Jr.'s big show at 6 p.m. Eastern tonight with trial lawyer Robert Barnes. And if you could, hop on over to local